Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is how to make a threshold of connection when you are forest bathing, and I will also want to give some thoughts on biophilia. So stay tuned then, let's go. As you might know, I am a practitioner of forest bathing, Shinrin Yoku. And what is Shinrin Yoku? Shinrin Yoku is to develop and spend time in nature, to use nature as a therapy for your mental wellness. So basically is to reconnect with nature for your mental health. So what is the threshold of connection? The threshold of connection when you are forest bathing is a marcation, a notation where you start the forest bathing. Why it is important for you to have a threshold of connection? Because you are now start to use some senses that are not described as a sense altogether. So mainly it's because they are not scientific senses, and they are only used in this situation. So the senses are, for you to know, the mirror sense, where you can feel what other people are feeling or other beings are feeling. The other being imaginal sensing. It's something that you will give voice and speak to other living beings, other people, with your mind, with your imagination, for instance, with the tree. The other one is the body radar sense, where you feel everything is right, you are in the right path, into the right direction, you are feeling good about that. And the other sense is the heart sense, feeling with your heart. There is no need for words, there is no need for anything, especially because you have all it in your heart. You use all of your body to listen and to imagine things. So this is a mark of a transcendent voyage, which is quite different from a hike that is going from point A to point B. So you have to have in mind what you desire for this forest bathing session, and you state it to yourself. So for me now, I will spend 2 hours in this forest bath to reconnect and calm myself and to explain to you what is going on. I will also talk about biophilia because it's too much related with Shinrin Yoku, forest bathing, reconnection with nature. So see you and let's go. Because you are really immersed in all this green, all this vegetation. Well, From some moments now, you will stop hearing the cars, and it will be complete silence. After the threshold of connection, you do the embodiment awareness invitation, which I will not bother you with it today. And just keep in mind that for some moments, while you are walking to the place where you plan to do or feel that you can do the embodiment awareness invitation, just remember what was your intention that you stated when you did the threshold of connection. Just come back to it and remember what you said, remember what your intention was. Just to keep it in mind. And we have arrived at some caves, which were funerary caves. In ancient times, people buried their loved ones in these caves. You can have this place for your embodiment awareness if you want, but I think I have another and more interesting place. Let's find out. Those caves provided shelter and a home for our ancestors to rest forever. Why is biophilia so important? We are now living in a world that had to cross a divide during the Middle Ages, thanks to the God-given head-on to the humans, and we owe this also to René Descartes with his Cartesian philosophy of having a soul, not having a soul, having a mind that is independent from the body, cogito ergo sum. So we don't need a body, we just need a mind. And because of politics and viewing nature as something we can exploit because it's ours, and trying to transform nature into artifacts, into useful forms, the use of technology, and because we have always started to think about the philosophy of improvement, mainly governments all over the world are expecting to develop more and more and more, so when they don't know where to stop, and because we have cultivated an enormous sense of dissatisfaction. So these are with the conversion, also with the conversion of politics to self-interest, they are mainly the causes of the issues today with our decreasing nature, our species extinction and habitat deterioration and extinction also. So from the Middle Ages onward, when we were already after the agricultural revolution 10,000 years ago, so Christianity is 2,000 years, 2021 really, and we were far from being hunter-gatherers, and we were far from that livelihood, but we had a strong connection with nature. See, for instance, the Celtic religion, the Celtic myth, the relation, the ancient Romans, the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans afterwards, they all were connected with the lines and the thoughts of the relation between humans and nature. Then Christianity and the Judeo-Christian philosophy, religion, call it what you want, brought us with a new concept that nature was something God has given to humans to explore. And the other concept is nature is soulless, so you cannot find a soul unless you are a human. So trees don't have souls, stones don't have souls. Well, I believe a stone don't have a soul, but I can't argue if we have a soul or a tree have a soul. Animals, other living beings. So the world is that matter. It's matter that is that. So what we owe to that matter? Nothing. So we kept exploring and exploring and exploring because it was given to us to. Then, after Middle Ages have ended, we started Renaissance, and then Illuminism and Enlightenment. And one of those people that were very, very proeminent during Enlightenment was René Descartes. René Descartes stated that all animals, except humans, don't have a soul. Well, I'm not sure if he said this, but only humans have the capacity to think, and if they think, they are. So what we see with Cartesian philosophy or theology, call it what you want, sorry, name it what you want. The thing is, we can live separately from our bodies. which means that our body can be something which the mind says it isn't, or otherwise, or the mind is, you just need the mind to be. You don't need the body to be. So if your mind think you are a cat, it's because your body is wrong. Your human body is wrong. You are a cat and you are not a human. Well, this is quite complicated and has several branches into nowadays gender politics and so on, but mainly what we are talking about is animals don't have souls. If an animal doesn't have a soul, it's ours to be exploited. And they are machines, so we don't owe nothing to machines. With the property of nature, let's call it the property of nature, and soulless animals, machines, artifacts, we had to cut with the notions and the feelings of belonging to a certain means, which is nature, well, obviously. And the next step we had to do is to see nature as hard data. We had to start measuring hectares and acres and tons and barrels and so on, because if it was ours to exploit and the animals are ours to exploit, we have to think about profit, right? For any continuous improvement policy to take root, you have to constantly develop a sophisticated cultivation of dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction, what is meant by a sophisticated cultivation of dissatisfaction? Well, it's the annual style modification. Why the fashion of this year is no longer cool in the next year. Why do you have to implement mass consumption? Marketing is a result of this sophisticated cultivation of dissatisfaction. Another thing I have already talked about is undermining the sense of place. If you are more into biophobia than into biophilia, mainly in the small communities in that are the last resource, the last line of defense of nature, if you are detaching them to the place by means of television, pre-made cooking meals, tablets and mobile phones, smartphones and so on, they will, because the main issues here are the transmission of knowledge that is mainly by in that small communities, Indian communities, it's mainly verbal stories they tell each other. If you lose that and what you will see only is television, and when they don't have a full understand of life. So the next thing you had to do really was to develop a sophisticated cultivation of dissatisfaction. So it will bring another thing alive. I just remembered. Well, you see how status is related to the possession of artifacts. Big cars, big houses, big money, bank accounts, big an iPhone, a telephone, a smartphone, video games, computers. If you have that, you have signs of status. So this is all related, and you see how brands launch every year. You see how brands launch every year 2 or 3 models of the same thing. For instance, mobile phones. Well, it's quite a... The last thing that took us here at this state of things was the conversion of politics, which is the search and the response to public matters into the pursuit of self-interest. And by doing so, when we are pursuing not all the interest but the interest of self, we are really in the selfish politics. And a politics that is selfish cannot be something that you can count on to be a... If the pursuit is of self-interest, what you have is something quite odd, because you have become an important citizen when dealing with great matters like protection of nature, protection of habitats. It doesn't matter because it's not a self-interest. If it's not a self-interest of the politician, you may want to forget it. It's better to forget it. So what can we do for saving nature? This is the big question. So I already touched the subject of the next thing that had to happen. When you have useful forms, if they stay the same for years and years and so on, they are starting to be useful. So what you have to do is to establish a philosophy of continuous improvement. There is no government anywhere on earth that is not invested in constantly improve and constantly development of ideas, and there is no way they will slow down, they will stop. For any continuous improvement policy to take root, you have to constantly develop a sophisticated cultivation of dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction, what is meant by a sophisticated cultivation of dissatisfaction? Well, it's the annual style modification. Why the fashion of this year is no longer cool in the next year? Why do you have to implement mass consumption? Marketing is a result of this sophisticated cultivation of dissatisfaction. Another thing I have already talked about is undermining the sense of place. If you are more into biophobia than into biophilia, mainly in the small communities that are the last resource, the last line of defense of nature, if you are detaching them to the place by means of television, pre-made cooking meals, tablets and mobile phones, smartphones and so on, they will, because the main issues here are the transmission of knowledge that is mainly in that small communities, Indian communities, it's mainly verbal stories they tell each other. If you lose that and what you will see only is television, and when they don't have a full understand of life, So the next thing you had to do really was to develop a sophisticated cultivation of dissatisfaction. So it will bring another thing alive. I just remembered. Well, you see how status is related to the possession of artifacts. Big cars, big houses, big money, bank accounts, big an iPhone, a telephone, a smartphone, video games, computers. If you have that, you have signs of status. So this is all related, and you see how brands launch every year. You see how brands launch every year 2 or 3 models of the same thing. For instance, mobile phones. Well, biophilia is the answer. But how the love for all living things can save us from all this apocalyptic net that we got into. In this video, I've talked about the threshold of incorporation and some biophilia and how we came to be this awful apocalyptic thing that is going on our planet. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you agree with me. I hope you start thinking about these issues, and while thinking about these issues, please subscribe to my channel and give a like to this video.